Sometimes Excel is fun. And in this case, this is fun. What are we doing? If student passes 4 of 6 subjects, show a pass, otherwise fail. Brad Williams, Excel primed. We're using if and. Incorporate that with a COUNTIF. These are just fun to do. The reason I include this is because it's going to mix it up a little. Here, there's 2 examples. The first one is if student passes 4 of 6 subjects, either thumbs up or thumbs down, pass or fail. All we're doing is we're looking here and something has to be greater than 4. What has to be greater than 4? COUNTIF. COUNTIF C5 is greater than, has to be greater than 70, all right? This should be formatted, this should be put together in a different means. You see this 70 and this 4, those are fixed. We could just put those up in here. That way we can change them without having to go in and mess with this stuff. My suggestion would be to reconfigure this. What are we doing? Our criteria is 70. You have to pass at least 70, and you have to pass at least 4. Well, let's look. A logical test. Because we're using an if, we have to put it's either this or that. Well, it's either this, it either passes or it fails. That's the if statement. They're fun. They're simple. Okay, now in terms of COUNTIF, what is it? Well, our range. We're going columns. We could set this up in rows if we wanted to, but we'll just go with columns. What's the criteria? Greater than 70. Whatever this is, it has to be greater than or equal to 4. Our COUNTIF has to be greater than or equal to 4. In other words, you got to be greater than 70 in order to pass. So here, if we can do this, I doubt if this will work because it's a COUNTIF and we generally can't delve into this. We're not going to be able to tear this thing apart. Logical test. I think it's just going to show us 4. Yeah, it's true. And then if we go in and C5, this is just going to show the numbers here. F9 and see 70, 66. COUNTIF is going to look at this thing in the curly brackets. It's just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to be true because everything here is greater than 70. We've done this repeatedly. And then if it's true, pass. Otherwise, the if statement is going to come in, do its business. Got it? Over here, here's the example. The anatomy, we have the logical test value if. And then the COUNTIF, well, I just pointed the range, and I pointed if to you. No name ranges here. My recommendation is just put a 70 up here and a 4. Over here is pretty much exactly what I just mentioned. And let's go to the second example. Here, we're going to make it a little tougher. We're going to say you're going to need to pass at least 4 courses. At a minimum, you have to pass finance and human resources in order to pass. You see it? Without me explaining, the first if includes an and. That's why I said this is where it gets a little fun because it's an and statement. We're using an if and we're using a COUNTIF. So going left to right, you know what this COUNTIF greater than 70 is. We have F5 right here. You see this COUNTIF greater than 70? Well, we just did that. Well, then we throw in an and statement. And is saying, well, it's logic. Logic 1, logic 2. Oh, let's look. Logic 1 is what we just did with the if statement. Logic 2 is C5 has to be greater than equal to 70. What's C5? Finance. Go to the next logic, F5. What is it? It's human resources. Has to be greater than 70. So we have and, we have if, well, COUNTIF has to be greater than 70, and C5 has to be greater than 70, and C5 has to be greater than 70, and F5 has to be greater than 70. If not, you don't pass. If they're true, you pass. If we look at this thing, F9, it's just going to say pass. And then if we go to if, it's going to just go F9, pass. And that's the problem here. You're not going to get the breakdown here. So when you do this, don't count on this formula bar to be of any help. This is where it's fun, where you just go if and, start with your and, because you can just get sidetracked here and stick with your and, then put your if in there. So in other words, look what happens here. If you're stumbling over this, start here. Remove the if. Figure out what the purpose of if is. Get rid of this. Hit go. Here, you're seeing true. Well, here we had fail. You can just look at this. Now I understand what if did. If just presented either a pass or a fail. Right. The meat and potatoes of this thing is this and function. This says true. Hit F9. Okay. Hit F9 false. Why is this false? Keep in mind, what are we trying to do here? This is an and, so everything has to be true. I'll look at the first function here, or the first argument, go COUNTIF. Does, here we know we have to go greater than 4. There has to be at least 4 70s, and there are not 4 70s. You throw it out, you fail. But you want to know what the failure is. Well, there's 1, 2, 3 failures. Hit F9 again. First thing you want to look for, are there at least 4 70s? But we have a false. What happened? Well, that's where your and comes in, and you have to say, well, we passed the first test. Let's look at C5. Is C5 greater than 70? No, failed. But while you're here, look at F5. It passed. So they failed to finance, and therefore it's a blunt instrument. This is a strict operation here. Okay, hit F9. You can see true. Even though there's a 55, computer science, well, that's not uncommon. If you're strong in accounting and finance, I bet you suck at computer science. But if you're, anyway, off topic. Hit F9 and hit false. And just do process of elimination going. They failed to pass at least 4 courses. You kind of get the gist here. What I'm trying to see is if in human resources they blew it. Here again, corporate strategy, computer science, etc., etc. Brad Williams, XL Prime. Thanks for watching.